Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today we have the pleasure of talking to Dr. Karleen Su, and she is the co-founder and CEO of her own private practice. And she also is the founder and CEO of RPPA, which stands for Rheumatology Private Practice Alliance. So with that, Karleen, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you, Letty and Kenji, for inviting me. What an honor to be on your show today.
Thank you. So, Karleen, you are doing some amazing things. And that's really what we wanted to talk about was your entrepreneurial journey and all the things you're doing right now. And for people to really get some pearls and learn a lot from what you're doing with your private practice as well as RPPA. So can you start by telling everybody about starting your private practice? Because physician practices, there aren't that many anymore, and it's always decreasing. So what made you initially start your practice, and what kind of insights have you had from running your own practice about how to keep a practice successful long-term?
Yeah, so I was employed like a lot of fellows were employed after they graduate because you have this mindset and training that you're not really fit to do business. I got no training in business except during my childhood. My parents were actually donut shop owners. Were immigrants. They didn't know how to speak English. So what do? Most immigrants do is they open their own businesses. So I knew how hard it was for my parents to run that business. So I thought, no way am I going to run a business. But then after being in an employee position, I was very frustrated because I realized that I didn't like the way things were run. It was very bureaucratic and things were not really going as planned. And so then when it was purchased by a large insurance company, that's when I knew that I'm not going to be able to grow the way I wanted. So I just decided to leave, really with no plan whatsoever afterwards, actually.
Wow.
I thought I was going to take a sabbatical and then figure out, because I was really burnt out actually by then with all those years of training. And then my partner at that time, or my colleague at the time, says, well, I'm not going to be here by myself, because he also saw the writing on the wall, and he's an older, he's been in practice for 30 years by then. And he saw that the joy of practicing medicine is actually practicing with your colleagues. And if he's going to be there by himself, he didn't want it. So we just decided maybe we'll open a private practice. No clue about how it works at all. No clue. So if I were to go back and know what I had to do now, I probably wouldn't have done it. But looking back, I am glad I did because it was really, really tough.
Wow. Okay. So you decided to do it together. How did you even start? And I'm sure there were a lot of fears. How did you manage those?
There were a lot of fears. I just didn't know that what the challenges were ahead of me. So, they say ignorance is bliss. It really was. I really didn't know. We hired consultants to help us. And we also, of course, hired lawyers, both of which were very, very expensive. And in retrospect, it was really not the way that I, would have gone. I think at that time, there was no communities that was easily accessible. And had I been part of different communities, I think I would have been able to do it the way that I wanted to and save a lot more money along the way too, and hiring the right people to help me. So it was the first few years was disastrous. Like the first year, I had 100% turnover in staff. Yeah. And in 3 years, I went through 4 office managers. And the one thing that my consultant told us, which was wrong, is that you just hire office manager and you just come in and work as a doctor. You don't have to worry about anything else. So they didn't empower you with being a business owner, which I think all consultants should empower you to be a business owner, not just to be a passive employee of your company.
Now you have an alliance of public practice doctors. So I'm assuming that there's a way to do this where it's not so painful sounding. Is that right? I mean, like if you could teach somebody how to do this a lot more efficiently and better.
Yes. So what happened was I realized that there must be people out there with the same problem. I cannot be the only one. And so, my friend was telling me about this women's rheumatology group. It was more like people talking about clinical cases. So it was kind of like my first time on Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook that often before. And then I found out there are all these doctors that are in private practice. And then I'm like, there must be a private practice group for rheumatologists. It turned out that there isn't, or there wasn't at the time. And then so I just kind of created this group really out of selfishness. I needed to tap into other people's wisdom. And that's how it started. It was just a couple hundred people, and then it just grew into over 1,000 people now. So it was just a way to share information. And I learned a lot. I found out that I actually learned quite a bit that I could teach other people. And the other people who were 5 years, 10 years ahead of me was able to teach me. And so that was like, oh, wow, what an eye-opening experience. And that's how we ended up with a conference about 2 years ago. It was our first conference.
Yeah. And I attended that conference and I was absolutely blown away, by how many people you had there and all the sponsorship you had arranged. I mean, it's conference is no joke, guys. I mean, it takes a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of time, and picking and choosing the right speakers is in a job itself. So talk to us about that and how you were able to grow it how you have, because I think it's, conferences are a lot of risk and a lot of people don't do them because of that. So talk about how you've been able to successfully do this, because it really is a feat.
It's called ignorance bliss.
You're
Because I
empowered.
didn't know how hard it was. So, after COVID, right? A lot of people were in the group talking about, what do we do in this COVID situation, telemedicine and things like that. And then I felt this need to meet people in person. You just felt really lonely, like doing Zoom all the time. And so in 2023 was actually my first conference. You came to my second one.
Mhm.
The first one, that's when I realized how hard it was and how expensive it is to host a conference. And so I was very lucky. You do a lot of hustling, trying to network a lot. And that's how I found out that, the value of networking, just everybody that you meet, you don't know what kind of network they have. And just looking to everyone as like, they could bring a lot of wisdom to you as well. It doesn't have to be other doctors. It could be people in any industry. And that's kind of what I learned during this process. Just talk to as many people as possible. And so, what I feel is unique about my conference is that I met, Peter, Kim, you, and then Lane, and I felt like it gave me an advantage to look at things that are in non-traditional medical conferences. So when I went to your conference recently, which by the way was awesome, I highly recommend it. You brought in people that I would not have met in the conferences I attend. So I think it's really important to step outside of your regular circle. And so these are the people that I bring in. So like I brought you in because, a lot of people in my community don't know anything about you guys. I saw how they were like trying to track you down after the session. And like, I'm like, you guys give her a break, but that's the thing is that I feel like I'm able to bring that unique perspective to my community.
So let's talk about challenges. So I'm sure there have been a lot of challenges. You kind of talked about that overturn, so employee changeover, turnover.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should start there, talk about that a little bit, and then talk about other challenges that you faced and what you've learned from being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think the really important thing for anyone starting a business is that they have to, learn how to be a better leader. And I don't think that was taught to me. I didn't know that being a business owner means being a leader. And I had no concept of what being a good leader is. Also, I just thought that I really could be passive in just coming to work and have my manager handle everything, until you realize that no one really looks at your business the way you do. It's like a baby, right? You have to really nurture it. And so in the beginning, I realized that things were falling through the cracks. For example, there were over 100 messages in the voicemail in my clinic. And I knew that you can't run a business if you can't even answer your phones, right? And so then I found out that my office manager was so lenient to the office staff that they were just taking lunch whenever they wanted, which is like, you can't function a business if people are just going to lunch whenever they wanted. And so it was that evolution of things where I ended up getting a second office manager that was too strict. So you hire someone to fill the deficiency of your last one. So this person made all of employees pretty much quit because whoever was on the initial phase of the practice was used to that style, right? And so then this is where in the first 4 or 5 years, I learned what culture I wanted to bring. And it was very painful because we call it, my clinic is called Amicus Arthritis. We call it Amicus 1.0, Amicus 2.0, Amicus 3.0. I'm probably at Amicus 3.2 right now. So you're getting smaller changes as you go along.
Yes.
And so, right, I'm sure that's kind of what you guys have gone through too, where you have to clean up and then get new people and then you create new culture, right?
Yes, yes. It's interesting. There's a life cycle of the business, and you start in infancy, you start in toddlerhood, and in toddlerhood, you're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You're making all sorts of mistakes. Everybody's off doing whatever. and you have no idea what's going on, and you have to transition to young adulthood where there's leadership, where there's systems and processes. But it's like, I don't know that it's possible to skip some of those things. Maybe if you're a really experienced CEO walking in on day one, maybe you can skip. But I think in some ways you just have to go through that pain, and you have to learn a better way to do it. And one thing you just mentioned is culture,
Mhm.
the most important thing. And, I have this new business called Biara, and literally this is the thing I'm going to teach in month one is culture. Because
Mhm.
when you sit down and you write your cultural values and you write out what's important to you and how we treat each other, that's culture, then you have that clarity of vision, and the right people, it attracts the right people. They'll sometimes work for you for a discount. Like I've had people come in and say, hey, I was making more money before, but I just want to be part of what you're doing. And that
Mhm.
culture also maintains the right people long term. So you mentioned culture, you mentioned developing your culture. And can you talk about how that's maybe changed your business and your experience of it?
Yeah, so I was part of this program called SBA Thrive, Small
Hmm.
Business Administration Thrive, and it's actually a free program, and you have to apply to get in. Apparently, it's kind of competitive to get in, but you're in your local cohort. One of our graduation project was to write all these stuff, and so this was just I think it was just last year, December. That it was for the first time where I had my business for almost 10 years, where I actually sat down and wrote down what the mission my businesses and then the core values. But before that, no, I didn't sit down. And so, and I don't think you could really come up with those in the first year of your business, to be honest with you, right? Because you kind of grow with your business and you kind of realize that these are the things you want, accountability, compassion, and all those things that you don't really think about till you figure out what's important to you. But I think being in these programs early on probably would have accelerated my growth. So you're talking about your coaching program, which I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need any coaching. I could just do it on my own, which you could, but it may take you 5 to 10 years, right? Versus if you go to a program where they tell you, you need to start thinking about these things early on. You need to learn about your leadership skills. So I didn't really think about that till fifth year in, saying, oh my gosh, I'm a business owner. I need to, I need to know how to manage people. I don't know how to manage people, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you have any tips about culture? And if somebody's like listening to this, wondering like, okay, what does that even mean? Or let's say that somebody's in private practice for 5 to 10 years, like, what kind of advice would you have for them about culture?
I think it's the first thing first is learning about what kind of leader you are, and learning how to value your employees. And I think that could be a learning process too, because I was doing the wrong thing. What I was doing was I was trying to get them all into like fun activities, decorating, and I thought that was great. I give them bonuses. It turned out that, you have introverts and extroverts. Some people just don't like to do these decorating activity. I thought that it would increase or improve morale, but some of the employees who left are like, I hated those activities. Yeah. And so I think you have to really first learn how to be a leader, and learn how to appreciate your employees the right way. And I think it's very individualized too. Some
Yes.
employees need to be appreciated a certain way. And I think holding accountability is really important too. And I'm learning that as well. Like right now, I'm still learning like what to reward the employees and also get their buy-in, not so transactional. And I want them to really do things because they really care about the company, not because they're just there for the paycheck. Because, like you said, people will work for your organization for lower pay because they see the value, they learn something, and they're part of something greater than themselves. And I think that's really tricky, though, in this day and age, dealing with a different generation that we have to understand, the Gen Z, right? Yeah. So it's very fun process, though, to learn how to manage people and learning their culture, which is different from our culture, what we grow up.
Yes, 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 definitely the generational stuff. And there's a slide that one of my mentors showed me actually, 3, 4 years ago. So I got this relatively early on with semi-retired MD, probably like the first year actually, which is a manager's perception of why people work for you versus the employee's perception of why they work for you. And it's a list of like 10 things. And the manager has pay as the number one. And the employee has recognition and appreciation for good work done. Like that's what is most important. And it's so often that we think that people are going to respond in a certain way. And often like love languages, right? We want to give in the way that we receive, and we don't take that time to learn how they receive and actually feel seen and appreciated. And so I think all of those things that you just said are absolute pearls for people. Learn how people receive appreciation and understand that even more than money is actually just being seen and appreciated for what they're doing and how they're contributing is really, really meaningful, especially to other generations, I think is even more so.
Yeah. I think also to make them proud of what they do, because a lot of times you say, oh, I want you to meet this benchmark. Sometimes they get defensive. And so how do you deliver that message without, making them feel like they're being micromanaged? I think that's a skill that leaders have to learn. And so, the way you deliver the message, that's something I'm trying to also get better at.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we all mean well, but when we try to meet certain objective, they may not understand what we're seeing as owners. And so again, like learning how to appreciate, for example, how do you reward someone? And you have to know the data. So I'm entering the phase of more data driven than just sort of like nebulous, like you're doing a great job, but what does that mean? Right. And so when you have data that's objective, it's hard to argue that.
Dashboards. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Any books you would suggest people who want to work on their leadership abilities? Any books, for example, or podcasts that have helped you do that?
So I really love the book Traction. You guys probably read it, right? I feel like every entrepreneur should read that book. It really is all encompassing, like even like how to, it talks about culture.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about how to fill the right person in the right seat, and then how to run a meeting. So I think if I could get my practice in that EOS system, that would be amazing. So I'm kind of like implementing that right now, trying to get EOS into my practice, because really it's like you could do it in any business, right? Not just like one industry. It could be any industries.
Yes. Yeah, we love EOS. We run on EOS, and we had an EOS consultant for a couple of years as well. So I highly suggest that book for sure.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and the consultant experience was good. They would
really
come
great.
in and help. They would watch us run a level 10 meeting, and they would give us feedback on it. And it was great. They would walk the company through, the leaders in the company through the EOS process.
Yeah, because I think it's what you were just talking about. Like, you as a leader can get this information and you can implement it in your business. But sometimes it's helpful to have somebody else teaching it. Mm-hmm. And so I found EOS also very early on, like 2020, and implemented in the business. But I can say when we brought our EOS consultant in maybe 2022, he stepped it up another level than I had been able to do, is even as an individual going in and being really diligent and setting up EOS. So yeah. And keep in mind, EOS, you guys, if you even have one or two team members, you can still run level 10 meetings. You can still do this kind of stuff. And people do it in our communities with just their VAs, right? They have real estate portfolios and they have a VA, and we're like, hey, run your level 10 meetings every week with your VA, because you get into that pattern, and it kind of, as you grow, you set the structure up to really be able to scale at a different level than if you're just kind of doing things willy-nilly and not organized.
Well, if you have two people, you need a process or a way to have an effective meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
No matter what.
Yeah. And that's great that you're saying this, because I was just looking to hiring a EOS consultant, and I was kind of on the fence, but it's one of those things that you could do it yourself and it could take you 2 years.
Yeah.
Or you could hire someone and you'll get there faster.
Right.
And even though there's cost to it, but there's cost to our time. So it's that ROI. So I may ask you more about it later on.
Of course.
Like how to find the right consultant. Because it's, I'm not opposed to consultants. It's just that my initial consultant I wasn't very happy about, but there's always good ones and bad ones, and learning how to vet them.
Yeah, we're happy to share. So any other challenges that you think are worth highlighting for other people maybe who are following in your path and are going to start their own practices? Because we see that a lot in our community now, is people are going out and starting in their own practices. They understand real estate now. Now they've had the taste of the entrepreneurship. They understand that they can do it. They can make money in other ways. And then they also understand, the tax benefits and all those pieces that can go into owning your own practice. So we have more and more people doing that. I feel like we're the opposite trend in the world, is we're creating more practice owners. So talk to the practice owners out there who are thinking about doing this the first time. They're scared. They got a lot of limiting beliefs. What would you tell them?
I think and this has been talked about many times, is that we went through medical school. We have these skills, and intelligence to start a business. I think it's all in the mindset. So you can't do everything at the same time, and it will take time for you to get to where you want. You just have to take one step at a time and get the support that you need. I think a lot of people, they have told me, like, I can't open a private practice. It's too hard. Like, how do you define too hard? If you plan to get into medical school since you were in undergrad and you didn't become a doctor till what, 10 years later, you planned everything out to get there. And so I think there's a societal, message to doctors, like you're not a business person, but we need more leaders, among physicians. And so I'm happy to see more and more doctors looking to opening their direct care, right? Primary care, direct specialty care, concierge. And I think the insurance world is very complicated, but I still think it's doable. And so just telling people that you could do it and just find the right people to help you along the way.
Yeah, it's just like physicians are always told, hey, you're not good with money. Doctors are not good with money. Give all your money to a financial advisor. Let them take care of it. You're too busy. You just stay and do your W-2. It's the same thing that you're talking about is everyone's told, hey, you can't run practices. You're not good at business. And it's absolutely untrue. I mean, we are always looking at downsides, right? And protecting the downside as physicians and thinking of worst case scenarios and looking to protect against them. There's so much critical thinking that goes into being a business owner and so much about relationships. And I have a friend who psychiatrist who then built a real estate portfolio and then developed a telemedicine practice. And she says to me, like, what I do is I do psychiatry all day long on my team. Like it's our skills are completely transferable. And yeah, I hope more people will take that leap into starting their own businesses because it's a short-term kind of stress and discomfort for that long-term gain, right? Of having the freedom to control your time and to be able to create outsized returns for yourself and your family.
Yeah. And I think also people need to think about the practices being like a business, like any other business. And if they think it that way, then they realize that there's already like structures and templates that are made, right? There's like marketing part, there's the HR part, there's the financial part. A lot of it is very similar. And so I think that if those people who do real estate, if they could manage those things and hire their team, it's a very transferable skill, like you said. I have to say though, that business is not for everyone though, right? Like some people, they just don't like to manage so many people. That's not what they enjoy. And so people shouldn't force themselves into something that they know, like, I don't really want to be part of that. And that's okay too. Private practice needs employed physicians. There's a lot of autonomy. If you go work for a private practice versus a hospital system, the private practice will have more autonomy and we respect physicians' schedule more. So we have doctors that are working 3 days a week, for example, and we're like, you just had a baby. If you'd like to keep that schedule, that's fine. Or if you want a longer day, shorter day, it's just more flexible. And I think that is sort of the message for private practice. We're going to bring that control back to physicians.
I'm curious about your RPPA business, and it's a community rheumatologist. And I'm just curious for those who are thinking about building communities. I think communities are increasingly important in this world of AI. And so it's something that I don't think AI can replace, right? Is the community and the bonding and the people. But I'm curious, as a leader of those communities, like what are some things that you have found or any tips you would have about running a community and building that kind of feeling of community? Any tips around that for the entrepreneurs out there thinking about building a similar community?
I think authenticity is really important. You're there because you really want to help and giving more value than, just as much value as you can. And so my trajectory is a little bit different in that I wasn't planning to do anything monetary with the community. So I was just on there all the time, replying, and people saw how I was there helping without anything in return. And so when I put up the conference and asking them to help to find sponsors, a lot of people volunteer and they were passing out postcards for me, talking to their drug reps and, hey, do you want to sponsor this event? So I was really like, oh my gosh, these people really wanted this organization to thrive and they saw that it was helping them. And I broke even with my event like the first year. I did make some on the second year. And I felt a little guilty. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be making money. But a lot of my community members are like, you should, you deserve it. You work so hard for it. But I think it's that mentality like, oh, we shouldn't take other people's money or whatever. But I really wanted to create something that is really, really valuable, and making any sort of compensation on the side is kind of like icing on the cake. So I think that's why it's been pretty enjoyable for me, that it's not my main source of income, but it is, hopefully helping me to get funding to build more stuff like the mentorship program that I've been thinking about building.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. And so I've been thinking about how in my own private practice, I went through different stages of challenges. And not one person could really address your challenges in all stages. So, there's an infancy, teenager, whatnot, right? And so if you just had a baby, you probably remember what it feels like to be sleep deprived. So let's say you're 2 years out, you probably be better coaches for someone who's about to give birth. And then you're dealing with teenagers, you want to go towards someone who just went through raising someone, through high school, and they're like completely, kids completely ignoring you or whatever, right? So the whole idea of the mentorship program is to build a network of mentors in different stages. And that way they could then go on to mentor someone else. So that's kind of my dream. I hope to build that huge network and just helping each other, so elevate each other that way.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So we're at the segment where we ask all of our guests 2 questions. And the first question is, what is your definition of wealth, or what is your definition of wealthy?
Wealthy. I think my definition of wealthy is when I get up and I get to do whatever I want to do. I actually, it's so funny you talk about real estate and opening private practice. I'm actually the reverse. I think real estate is really hard. And so I'm like, oh, I'm terrible with money, but yet I have a very successful practice. I had a discussion with my financial advisor this morning, and he was like, you could retire at 55 and not work a day and you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, wow. So it got me thinking, like, what, he's like, you don't even need to like buy that property for your prep clinic, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I want to do it because I want to, because it's fun. Right. And so that's my definition of wealthy, knowing that I could get up and just do whatever I want and be able to have enough to live. I don't need a lot of money, but it was just having that feeling like, okay, I got that income and now I could give back and just do a lot of fun stuff. Whether that business fails or not, it doesn't matter. Right. It's fun that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about time freedom, wealth freedom and all that stuff. I think it's just being able to get up and do what you want to do.
So what is one mindset, habit, or strategy that separates someone who is wealthy and versus someone who is not?
And this is actually something I have to remind myself, is that every challenge is an opportunity to learn. Mm-hmm. It really is. We humans tend to be negative. And when they're faced with a challenge, they start, spiral into like, oh, this sucks and I hate this. But if you flip that and say, this challenge is fun and I get to grow, because I really think that in every business, even my private practice, there's challenges every year. There's new ones. So you put in a lot of like work in the beginning, there's going to be new stuff coming up. So for example, there's AI now. So then you have to figure out how to implement AI into your practice. And so you're constantly pivoting. So I think having the mindset of being flexible, being able to pivot and seeing challenges as something for you to learn will do wonders for your mental health.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Flexibility. Huge.
Pivoting.
As an entrepreneur. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Nothing's forever. That's really like, you think you have, money generating this way, it may not be like that 1 year from now. So you just got to keep changing.
That's right. That's right. And CEOs, your job is to solve problems, and there will always be problems, and there will always be problems outside of your control. And you got to increase your threshold of control over and over and over again.
Yes.
For sure. Thank you. Can you tell us how people can find you and where they can go to reach you?
Yeah. So I have a website, rppa.co. So there's a contact form there. Just, contact me there. And then I, read all the emails that come through there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karleen, for your time. It was really a pleasure to have you. And thanks for sharing your experience building a successful private practice, and a conference and a community. I think there was a lot of learning for all of us about, what it takes to be able to do that. And also, entrepreneur who has multiple businesses, which we often see, right? It's, you build something and you see another problem you want to solve, and then you end up with multiple businesses. So yeah, congratulations on all your success.
it's a lot of fun. And I want to invite your listeners, anyone in private practice that wants to attend my conference. It's not just for rheumatologists. It really is for anyone in private practice.
Awesome. When is it?
It's in November 7th to 9th, and it's going to be in Houston, Texas again.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.